can see, the hole is dug. This represents about 25 hours of digging. Basically, the complete game. What is Decked Out? What is this game, and why is it going to be so incredibly amazing? And how does it differ from the last time we made it? Did I mention Decked Out 2 is going to be 4 levels? Yeah, it's going to be over 4 times bigger than Decked Out 1. So the majority of today's video is going to be going over Decked Out 2, the design of it, what it is, how it's going to be done, all these things, and more importantly, a lot of the changes from Decked Out Season 1 back in Season 7 of Hermitcraft to what we're going to do differently and much better this time. So what is Decked Out? Well, for those that are new, it is an intense dungeon crawling treasure hunting game where the players have to enter this incredibly hostile dungeon that I'm going to make. They have to find their treasure and they have to get out before they get their face eaten off. So for those that don't know, Decked Out is a deck building game. It means is you collect cards and keep them in your deck of cards, and as you play the game, these cards are played and they give you some pretty significant advantages to that specific run that they are played on. It means the more you play Decked Out, the more cards you get, which means you are stronger and accomplish more, can go deeper into the dungeon, can get better artifacts on subsequent runs. Okay, let's talk about the functionality of this room now. What we have is 22 little cubby holes, little lockers, little mini private rooms, if you will. Every player, when they play the game, will take their head and put it up on right there so that everyone knows whose room is what. And then they are heavily / strongly encouraged to customize the room they see fit. The only thing is they have to leave a shulker or a barrel or something right here, because that is where that they will put their tomes, contributing to their score of the game. They'll come and put them here, and that's how I will tally them up. We have a couple things here. Right here is going to be our scoreboard, which I am super excited about. We'll explain that in a second. Over here and to the left will be the shop, and then over there is where you begin playing Decked Out. So the scoreboard. For this thing, I really wanted it to be prominent and like a major focus of this whole area. The idea here again is every player that starts their game will put their skull somewhere along this line right here. So if that torch right there was the Tango skull, my score would be represented right here with some layers of snow. So this, every layer of snow is 1 point. So that's 3, 4, 5, 6, right? So right now I have 6. As a reminder now, the way the game works, right? The players get a compass. They have to scour through this dungeon and find the place where they have to drop off their compass in one of these little hidden stations, drop it on the floor, out pops an artifact. They got to take the artifact back to a post-game store, use the artifact, convert it into frost embers plus any other loose frost embers they got inside the dungeon they can use to buy new cards and things like that. But it's these artifacts that the players are going to look for, are going to try to acquire by dropping off their compass. To enter the Decked Out dungeon, you're going to need a key, which is gonna look like this guy. This will be the key to Decked Out. You simply put it in a barrel and the doors will open. But right after you put your key in and the doors open up and everything, you're going to get a compass, and the compass is going to point where you need to go in the dungeon. It's going to point to your artifact. The artifact is the thing that you need to acquire and is the entire goal of your dungeon run. But since we're going to have 4 levels in here, it also, the name of the compass is going to tell you what level of the dungeon your artifact is on. This is completely random. You don't know if you're going to get a level 1 or a level 4 dungeon run. So this one here, the Black Mines, that would be the 3rd level of Decked Out. Now, of course, as you are following your compass and trying to find your artifact, there's going to be some baddies in here chasing you around. The first 2 levels, that being the Frozen Tombs and the Caves of Carnage, they're going to have Ravagers in them. Lots of Ravagers. And of course, as you might be guessing, the bottom 2 levels, that being the Black Mines and the Ancient City, that's Warden Town. There's going to be wardens on all those levels, both of those levels, I should say. So you follow your compass along, you're moving through the dungeon. Oh, maybe it points over here. Eventually, you'll zero in, and this is just like Decked Out 1. You realize, okay, it's right here. You throw your compass on the ground, and an artifact will pop up in its place. Artifacts looking something like this. I'm going to have custom art for each artifact, and they're all going to have different values and levels of importance. In fact, we have a lot of artifacts ready to go. I'm loving this custom art. So all of these right here, I'm going to give them all custom unique names and everything. These are going to be the artifacts that you find in Decked Out. In fact, you're going to be fighting against two different systems, and that is Clank and Hazard. Clank is a way to measure how much noise you are making inside this little game. Every run, your Clank starts at 0, but as you are walking your way through the dungeon, you're going to be making some noise. You're going to be clanking it up, and when you do, the denizens of the dungeon get angry with you. And sticking with the theme of Decked Out 1, the spirits of the dungeons are again going to be Vexes. What we did in season 1 of Decked Out was we had evokers that would be hidden in the walls, and there would be little pistons that pop down. So now the evokers are not going to be hidden at fixed locations. They're going to ride on rails or in minecarts on rail systems throughout the entire dungeon. So when you reach a critical level of Clank, not even the maximum, but once you start getting close to the maximum, evokers are going to start riding these rails through the dungeons, and everywhere there's going to be these little peek holes where they can see you. So who knows where you'll see one? Who knows when they'll drive by? But the idea is the more Clank you make, and once you get up to maximum, that's when the maximum amount of evokers will be released into the dungeon. I'm currently thinking maybe like 5 evokers all spinning around and looping through the dungeon at the same time. And yeah, this room here, this is devious. These are going to be filled with lava, and there's going to be a thin iron bar in the middle. So the player pretty much has to walk around unless they want to try and parkour on top of the iron bar. But the Ravagers, they don't care. They're wide enough, they could just walk right across it. So this will be a little terrifying. The next system I want to talk about, which is kind of a peer to Clank and brand new to Decked Out 2, is called what I'm currently calling Hazard. I might change the name, but it's called Hazard. And one of the goals with Decked Out 2 is to make the dungeon, I want the dungeon to change the navigability, is that even a word, of the dungeon as you're going through it. So the longer you stay in the dungeon, purely as a factor of time, the more your hazard will go up. And corridors that you previously walked through might no longer be accessible to you when you return. And some traps may be triggered, may be armed, and those might be lethal traps, but more often than not, if they're not lethal, they're just obstructions. They're going to force you to go the long way around. They're going to really force you to have to go in an inconvenient way through the dungeon. And right now we're going to talk about frost embers and coins. Both of these are items that can drop anywhere in Decked Out. What we're gonna do this time is they're gonna drop from the ceiling literally anywhere in the dungeon. There's just no way you'll be able to predict where they're gonna come. The coins, and this icon is a bit large, I'll probably reduce it, it looks like a dinner plate, but the coins are pretty much the same as they were in the original Decked Out. You earn these, you find them in the dungeon, you can take them out of the game with you and use them to purchase interesting things in the shop outside the game, like basically in the Great Hall there. Pretty much as is, but very important. You want to accumulate these because you'll be able to buy some very interesting and unique things from that shop. Now these little guys, what I'm calling frost embers, these are brand new, better. They act like currency, so like coins, they will drop from the ceiling at completely random locations, just like coins. But the main difference with these guys is you cannot take them out of the game. They act as a currency for that run, just that one dungeon run. So the more of these you acquire, the better the cards you'll be able to buy at the end of that run. And what's really interesting is all of these artifacts, all they do is they translate into frost embers, and you'll be able to have cards that will extend or instigate the drops of these frost embers throughout the dungeon. So wherever you are, you get the card that plays and more frost embers will drop, thus increasing the amount of currency and the more power you have at the end of the game. So at the end of the game, you hand in your artifact, and only if you have an artifact is it considered a victory. And then like an internal shop will open up right in the post-game section. You'll get a bunch of frost embers for your artifact, and then maybe you found a handful. You bring them all together and there'll be like a shop that you can then spend your embers on right there to buy various cards. And what cards are available will be completely random. So when you're about to start a new run, and again, I know this is kind of hard to visualize because we don't have the systems in yet, but you start by plugging your deck of cards, which is just a shulker box. You keep it with you, you take it into the game, you plug it into the game, okay? And in Decked Out 2, the cards are going to be removed from your deck of cards immediately, and shuffled randomly. In Decked Out 2, you are not limited to just 5 cards. In fact, you can have as many cards in your deck as you want. The way it works is as soon as you step foot into the dungeon, every 30 seconds, a card is randomly pulled from your deck and played, and the effects of it are immediately applied. Most of the cards will provide some sort of instantaneous effect. Some of them may provide an ongoing effect, but that effect will only last 30 seconds until the next card is drawn. Sneak is a very basic card, right? I right click on it, it says it blocks 2 clank. Prevent the next 2 clank that would be generated. So when this card is played, you'll hear a sound, it'll tell you that Sneak was played, and now the next 2 times that you would have generated clank, it won't happen. It'll be negated because this card was played, regardless of when the effect happens. It doesn't matter if it happens in that 30-second window or not. And of course, you can customize your deck every run. If you think you want to make a deep run down to level 4, put more cards in. If you think you just want to make a quick run to level 2, then shorten up your deck and just put your very best cards in there. You guys, I know you're gonna have a ton of questions, okay? You can leave a comment and I'll do my best to answer them, but the best thing I would recommend is stop by one of my Twitch streams, because I'm talking about it all the time. People have great questions there, and we're gonna cover a lot of topics there.